Yay, it's Ramirez again. Hooray. No, I'm joking. Either way. Um, this part, alright, my name's FrogBear. My name's Ramirez. This is FrogBear.zil. Today's topic is MGTOW, men go their own way, / incels. Am I an incel? Yes, I am. Right? An incel is, dude, I still remember, alright, so I kind of want to talk about this issue from a 2014 perspective. So these were issues that I saw arise, you could say from 2014, 2015, and 2016. And specifically, shout out to 4chan. Again, that's just where I am. That's just who I be. R9K. Oh, man, R9K. I don't know how many people know about R9K, but man, was that place is a cesspool. That place freaks me out. But, right? It freaks me out, but I'm an incel. If anybody doesn't know, an incel is when you're involuntarily celibate. But it was because I was fat, and now it's because I just have I have communication disorders. That's a whole other problem though. MGTOW, men go their own way. Now that is very different. So when I remember MGTOW first coming up, it was closely associated with the Incel movement, and it was closely associated with what was it? Right, because this is the early days. This is 2014, 2013. So this is I know MGTOW has rebranded itself, and it now means something completely different. But when I first discovered it, oh no, that community was very different. That community was not a very nice community. If anybody was like KYS or delete yourself, faggot. If anybody was like that, it was people who hanged out on R9K. R9K was a very, very mean place. I put it up there in terms of if you want people to be mean towards you and say some of the worst shit, 2014 R9K, that was the place to go. I've heard very, very interesting stories from that place. I don't even know what the subject or the theme is of that board, but that's not the point. Don't ever go there. Either way, MGTOW, men go their own way. I didn't understand it at the time, and to this day, no, I think I understand it more now than ever. But it relates to that there is a subclass of men who just do not understand what the current dating pool is doing, and they've decided to walk their own way instead of focusing on working on their social skills or working on that interpersonal relationship stuff. Men going their own way now means just work on yourself, build yourself up, build your wealth, build your resources, this and that. It's a very different thing from what I remember it. Men go your own way back in the day was more related to fuck these thoughts, fuck this hookup culture, fuck all this bullshit, and fuck women. Dead ass. These were the kind of dudes that would just, right? If it's normal to just be oh, fuck bitches, dude. Nah, these dudes would take it to a whole new level. And it was the first instances where I saw a very specific subclass of men who just recognized certain behaviors that were exuberating themselves between men and women, and it was largely because of the way hookup culture has developed. It's the best way I could word that. It's the best way I could word that, but I can tell you right now, nobody from R9K back in the day would have ever said that. Ever. So, I don't know, I just have a very negative connotation of MGTOW and incels because of those moments in time. But now that I think about it, shit, I'm an incel, dude. You know what I mean? But I've done it more out of the necessity of wanting to self-improve, and I've done it more out of the necessity of just moving forward and grudging along my own path. Because, I've recognized that here in the city, here in LA, I'm not very appealing towards the opposite sex. They don't want somebody who sounds as good as I do. They don't want anybody who is as nerdy as I am, is as forthcoming, is as honest with his. I'm way too fucking honest for people. Like, I've literally had the opposite sex tell me that. We're like, you're too honest, you're too this, you're too prim, you're too proper or some shit. Like, I was like, what the fuck? Like, and this is just me asking out on dates, right? Like, nothing serious. And then if you try to like go on the hookup culture or dating apps, and I just do not prevail on that because I'm not a great texter. Either way, I have my own problems. Incels, by and large, have their own problems that kind of put them in that involuntary state. But with Men Go Their Own Way back in 2014, if there was a very toxic scene, that was it right there. And all of the men, at least the way I see it is, they were getting. I just couldn't comprehend it at the time. But now looking at where we are now, I'm like, dude, these dudes were geniuses. They were way ahead of the curve. And the reason why I say that is because I look at this from a perspective of a population problem. Not the way Bill Gates sees it, but the way humanity should be saved, should see it. Because it should let you know that to some degree our desires, our wants, and our needs have been hijacked. And because of the redirection that happens amongst Western culture, right, it's led us to where we are now. It's how, by and large, our society has degraded. But it was because there were these pivotal moments that we allowed to change. And one of them would be how men and women operate with each other and the accountability that comes with it. The reason why I say that is because, how should I say? I don't know. I just look at interesting stats, like the most attractive and the most desirable of men fit a percentage class that's less than 20%. Less than 20% are the men that are the most desirable amongst all of the women across the board, right? And then there's the statistic that was developed either off of, I think, OkCupid, or it was one of those dating sites. They basically released data that said that 80% of the women will always chase 20% of the men. And with that in mind, because that, I don't know how to say this. What kind of argument am I trying to make? I don't know. Because the way I see it is, none of these men are going to go. None of these, like, the men will fuck any of these women, but they will not stay with them, right? So it's kind of like, I'm going to enjoy all this fun, but I'm going to cause a bunch of emotional turmoil to whatever unsuspecting person that deals with me, right? And the way that accountability has also been let go to a large degree is dating isn't a thing anymore. And hookup culture is more of a thing than it is to go out on a date, to do anything meaningful in courtship and shit like that, right? You know, look out for you, queen, from these dusty bums. And I don't know, to see how that has developed and how that has affected the other 80% of men. Dude, it sucks to be an average guy, like, dead ass. And the first people that I ever heard this from were the Incels and the MGTOW groups of back in 2014. They were not very nice people to speak to, but they had a lot of sense talk to them, because I grew up fat my whole life. I was in every single sports team, and I was really good friends with some of the best looking players. And when I heard all of these arguments come out of those circles, I was like, damn, you guys got a point. Like, you guys are right. But I didn't get angry about it. Like, there was no need for me to be like, oh, I'm not getting any pussy because of X, Y, or Z. And that's usually what the issue gets conflated to. The issue will get conflated to, I'm not getting any pussy. And it's just like, no, that's not. Yeah, you can conflate the issue that way, but you're not accounting for all of the emotional trauma that the women will go through dealing with only 20% of the men. Because these 20% of men clearly will just keep cycling through these women. I don't know, the way I see it is, if somebody's used to getting free candy, just a variety of different candy. Anywhere they go, they can get whatever they want. What makes you think they're going to just settle down and think that this one piece of candy is going to satisfy them for the rest of their life? And that goes for the both argument, right? Because the way I see it, if there is a top 20% of men who are the most desirable towards women, there is also a top 10 to 20% of women that are absolutely desirable to any man. So it's kind of like those two groups will always meet each other and will always mess with one another and actually marry one another. I just don't see Chad le Dad settling down with an average looking woman. And the only instances that actually occurs is when she's a proper woman and she isn't exuberating any of these self-defeating behaviors that will just inevitably lead the same problem. If I have all these candy bars and if I can enjoy and have fun with all these different experiences, why would I settle down and enjoy just this one experience? You know, we develop this hyper-realistic sense of what things should be, and because the access is so plentiful that you run into this catch-22 of like, ain't nobody going to settle down. None of the top 20% of women and none of the top 20% of men are going to settle down because it's too much fun. And when you have, right, you can have all the fun in the world you want. There's nothing wrong with that. But it comes with the price of happiness, right? The more fun that you have throughout your life, the less happiness you're going to have towards the end of all that. That's my argument. I don't know if anyone in the Incel or MGTOW community has ever said that, but that's the trade-off you make. And it's kind of something that I wanted to tell one of my youngest nieces was, okay, the only reason why I'm going to bring up this story is because I don't know how, but my niece pulled like the equivalent of Zac Efron, but Mexican. Like, it baffles me to think how the fuck, like, where did you find this guy? Like, this dude looks like he popped out of a Disney set. Like, that shit was insane to me. She's 18, right? She just graduated. But that was the first time that I met her boyfriend, right? And his name is Ryan. I was like, bruh, that's the most Chad name somebody like him could have. But either way, I'm like, whatever. But that shocked me. I was like, you got him? And he's like super polite, super well-spoken. Like, his parents aren't even residents of the United States. He is, but his parents aren't. So I'm just kind of like, you speak amazing, immaculate English, immaculate Spanish. You're nice, you're helpful. You help my brother-in-law and my sister with the business. You're super forthcoming. But you're dating this brat? What the fuck? Like, it just, I did not understand how this worked out, right? So I wanted to tell my niece, if you fuck this up with him, you're never going to find anyone better than him. And now, very fucked up to say to an 18-year-old because she has her whole life ahead of her. She should slay like a queen. And I'm like, no. If you saw the boyfriend, you would not say what you're saying. Like, dead ass. If you saw what I saw, hell no. Nobody would ever say that, right? But she didn't want to hear any of it. She didn't want to hear any of it. Because, okay, that would be way too much information. She didn't want to hear any of it. And it was because of the way I approached the situation. It's just like, because I wanted to tell her, like, look, I've seen a lot of people in your situation, but you're about to make the same mistake everyone else makes, and you're going to repeat every single mistake your mom made, right? Her mom, my sister, made the same stupid mistake. She had tall, he wasn't really dark, but she had tall and handsome. Jose was like 6'2", 6'3". He was definitely really tall. Like, I remember, because that side of the family, I don't know, whatever. Really tall, but instead, my sister was like, nah, I'm gonna have fun. I'm gonna be a part of the party scene, and I'm gonna go to all these parties and this and that. And she got knocked up by some fucking nobody. And then she had to ruin that relationship with Jose, and then that leads to a whole other plethora of problems. And she set herself up in a cycle. And then she didn't even really find, I don't know. I've just seen too much with my sisters to know how all this shit repeats. It's like That's why I wanted to warn her. I'm like, you're about to repeat the same mistake your mom made. I don't think you understand what you're doing. And it didn't get that far. That conversation with my niece did not get that far, sadly. It just ended very terribly because I guess she wasn't expecting to get caught. And it kind of put her in that nervous state. Well, either way, I don't really care. Incels, MGTOW. Right? Understanding these topics leads to understanding a different perspective to life. And I understood this. These are facts. These are absolute facts to me. Because I remember how I was treated as a fat guy, and I remember and I can visually see how I'm being treated now as a not fat guy. That's the way I see it. In my head, I'm still a fat guy. So I'm just like, these MGTOW guys, these men go their own way movement, these incel people, they have the good wherewithal to know what they're talking about. But it's the answer to men's problem as a whole. Because men currently, the way I see it, we overthink. We allow ourselves to put ourselves in these we care too much. Like I did not understand why it is important for men not to care. And the reason for it is because it's just the way we're built. Like there's a lot that we're not supposed to care about. Like there is a lot we're supposed to self-sacrifice for the greater good of the future. It sucks. And it's why that the moment you allow men to delve or divulge any of these emotions without any proper understanding of them, you just see a spiral, dude. Like knock one wing out of a plane. Oh, mayday, mayday. And that's how we all are. Anybody who grows up in a single mother home or a single parent home, you will end up inevitably lopsided. Like I don't think women can teach what men can teach, and I don't think men can teach what women can teach. You need that duality. You need that understanding of both men and female to progress this idea. At least that might be the Gnostic teachings in me talking, but that's just the way I see it. Because to some degree, we have to acknowledge and hold each other accountable towards the behaviors we exuberate, towards the decisions we make, towards all of the things that we want to move forward with. But it's also important to understand the conditions and the situations of people. Because you can't just move willy-nilly, right? My sister... Okay, so I don't know if... I might be wrong about this, but the main reason why my sister never wanted to end up with the guy that she had a baby with was because he was unmotivated and he was complacent. And she did not like that. She's like, why do I still remember, because you know how it is. My 18-year-old sister decides to do something. My mom retaliates because my mom's super old school. Like, my mom was born in a village in the middle of bumfuck nowhere in Mexico. My mom's ideas are very different from modern people's ideas. It's kind of why I'm like hella old school in some of my thought processes. But to see my sister kind of complain about her baby daddy and be like, he's lazy, he's complacent, he doesn't want to progress forward, he's unambitious, this and that. And I'm just like, I remember internalizing that conversation really well because I saw her cry. And I saw her she was making a contemplative decision. And it's important to make these decisions because the way I see it, if my sister would have stayed with Rick, life would have been very different for her. And I don't know, the way she's now, I can't say, I don't know, it's kind of very interesting. I don't know where things would have ended up. But I do remember her being like, I guess it was necessary for him too. Because right after that, I saw him change his life. Because he was very complacent with living that little cholo wannabe lifestyle and this and that. I don't like this guy, right? I really don't like this guy. Only because as a kid, he took my PSP. So I never really liked that asshole. But to see my sister notice, right? That moment was so internalized to me that when it came later in life and I started listening to the MGTOW Incel movement, I was like, well, I've seen plenty of that. I've seen plenty of situations where my sisters picked dudes that were not good for them. And even when anybody tried to warn them, they were like, oh no, that's not how it is. And it's just like, all right, well, you're going to make your decisions. And, crying, tissues, tubs of ice cream. You can imagine what the waterworks looked like. So it's kind of why I really sympathize and I really identify with like men go their own way movement, the new men red pill movement, and why I'm okay with considering myself an incel. It's just I ended up as involuntary celibate because of the circumstances that I dealt with, and I don't know. Only because of the way that my ex was using me that I'm like, I don't know if I want to deal with the female sex anymore. I don't know. Very, very internalized different trauma. It's kind of why I always look at it from a very nuanced perspective, because as the data will show you the truth, there are other circumstances that allow these people the liberty to make these decisions. And a lot of it has to do with the parent household. A lot of it has to do with their friends. A lot of it has to do with the media they ingest. Just because you have a mom and dad household does not mean that it'll be conducive to a good individual. If mom or dad are lacking in any of the lessons that they could teach their child about what's out there in the world, they're just going to repeat. They're just going to play to the tune of whatever the culture is playing. So yeah, you can have a mom and dad dynamic, but if you aren't there with your child, they could experience being over-sexualized on the internet. They could experience the discovery of porn, the discovery of erotic stuff, and that's just one aspect of the internet. We don't even want to discuss what they could find on YouTube, what sort of rhetoric they could find, what sort of things that they could gravitate towards. There's also the issue of schools. So I don't know if anybody knows this, but schools, at least in California, are region locked in district, where if you don't live in that area, you can't go to those schools. So, right, imagine now you got all the inner city kids going with all the other inner city kids, and it's just like, well, who's your kid going to talk to now? Who's your kid going to relate to now? What kind of influences is he going to meet, right? There are a variety of different ways that this culture gets poisoned, gets tinged. So it's important to understand that this is a very multi-layered dynamic issue. Just because you have a mom and dad does not mean it'll build or mold a good individual. There are other things that go into this. And I can wholeheartedly say that because I've seen plenty of people who you would assume would be very good people because mom, dad, this and that, their lifestyle was good, but it turns out that they're not. Like I remember a very specific instance where, so a buddy of mine's dating this girl. They go out, they go clubbing, they go drinking, but my buddy's very good looking. The girlfriend has always been known to have tantrums with him talking to other girls. Essentially what happens is they get to the house, she starts hitting him and she starts being really mad at him for whatever reason, and he curls up into a ball, and when he has enough of it, he just stood up, but in standing up, she was over him, but in standing up, he knocks her on the nose and she starts having a bloody nose. They have the video footage, they have everything, but when it all goes to court and when it all goes to in front of the judge is like, I don't care. You're going to jail. You're going to jail. Like the girlfriend came in, wrote a letter, told the whole truth, was like, no, this is not how it was, this and that. My buddy had to sit in jail for a few days over a misunderstanding, and just because she was angry at the moment, she lied while she was drunk and this and that. It's just like, very nuanced situations that we're in. And I understand, like, these are just exceptions, they're not the rules, but at the same time, everything is the exception. When you, at least from my perspective, because you have to look at what allowed these circumstances to arise. Let me look at your early childhood. Nah, I'm joking, but it's that thing of this MGTOW movement, this Incel movement, they were right. I hate to fucking say it, but they were right to a large degree. And it's important to understand this because this is why I don't know what people think about Jordan Peterson now, but I really gravitated towards him when I started this journey of self-healing. Because he had said, I don't know if anybody ever watched his classroom recordings. Like, he has a bunch of recordings of him in his classroom. I watched all of them. I watched every single one of them. And They made me realize different aspects of myself, how I held on to trauma, how I internalized certain relationships. Like, say what you will about the man, but that really helped out a lot. And it's kind of why I understood how I got fat. Like, I got fat because of what my dad did to me. So it's kind of like, oh, I've just internalized trauma this specific way, but in order for me to prevent this anymore, um, I just became undesirable because it's a little weird, but it's very difficult to internalize this because I still remember when my mom told me, like, you got to be careful when you go over to your dad's side of the family. Like, that conversation was not easy for a 6-year-old. I think I was 6. Either way, not okay. But these are important things we have to teach our children. And if you never have these conversations, I still remember. All right, funny story. So my sister Letty, they were at a mall, and I wasn't there, but she told me this story, or somebody told me this story, where they wanted to test the kids to see how smart they were. And they were like, all right, they got this random guy at the mall, and they were like, hey, here's a bunch of candy. We want you to see if any of our daughters are stupid enough to go with you if you offer them free candy. All of them were fucking retarded. Every single one of them was like, yeah, let's go, yeah. Okay, Emily, Amber, I don't know if Jasmine was there. But yeah, the 2 youngest ones for sure were like, yeah, we'll go with you. We'll take the free candy. Fuck, dude. For them to get meted with their parents and be like, why did you take this random stranger's candy? Do you know what could have happened? Like, bruh. That's just one instance, right? Like, how do you teach your kids this? So, like, kind of, not allowing men to be men is what I'm trying to say. Because so I had my cousin Brenda over here from Wisconsin because she was picking up her son from baby dad. So, yeah, when my cousin had her son, she was living here in California. Later, because of circumstances, opening up a restaurant, they moved over to Wisconsin. Either way, she was here recently, and while they were waiting for Gael to come over to the house, she's telling me, because she looked at my garage and was like, oh, I've noticed that you have a lot of books. My son likes to read too. And I was like, oh, cool. What kind of books does he like to read? And she starts telling me about how she doesn't like him reading certain material because she's afraid of the ideas that could come from these books. And I looked at her like, you're not allowing him to be a man. Like, you're not allowing him the circumstances to understand the world as it is. And I just remember bringing it up as an instance where, what are you going to do if he marries an emotionally manipulative woman? I know it's a terrible example, but I had to bring it up. Like, are you just going to pretend that you don't see this? Are you just going to pretend that, like, how is he ever going to discover this if you're constantly going to be there to remove these materials away from him? And she was talking about, like, criminal books, crime investigation stuff, like Sherlock Holmes related stuff, like those kind of crime books. And I'm just like, the world's a fucked up place. And it's right, because I'm not a parent, but she is. I told her, you have to understand that you have to mold him. Like, you have to teach him the realities of this world so he's well equipped. When he goes out into the real world, he's not left stunted. He's not left caught as a surprise. You taking away those books that he's reading is stunting his growth to some degree. And I don't know how she internalized that, because we didn't have a conversation after that point about that specific topic anymore. I brought it up because, I think it's important. He's 15, so he's not that old, but still, like, I thought it was important. I'm like, he's at an age where he's going to need to understand very difficult things. So I gave him 2 books. I gave him the First Principles of, My First Meditations on My First Philosophy by René Descartes. And I gave him The Power of Myth, which is a book. It's like the first podcast that exists, in my opinion. It's an interview between, what was his name? The Hero's Myth? Joseph Campbell. It was an interview between Joseph Campbell and some news reporter, but it's in a book, right? You could actually go on Netflix, I think, and find it. It's called The Power of Myth. It's a great series. But that book has subject matter about how certain tribes, and then how the ideas and concept of boys becoming men is in that book. So, to some degree, I didn't have that conversation with him, but I imparted with him the knowledge that, right, that Rene Descartes book that I give him, I've had that book for over 10 years. That philosophy meditations book was by and large my all-time favorite book. Like, I carried that book with me everywhere. Like, there's coffee stains, it's whatever. And I gave it to him. And I didn't even think about it. Like, I didn't even think twice about giving him that book, because the way I saw it was, these two books are going to do so much more to you as a development as a human being, that I hope you could move forward into a positive light, into a positive future. Because he was a smart kid. Like, the way I see it, he's a smart kid. He has a fucked up stepdad, but smart kid. Either way. Started with the all right, men go their own way. And in a weird way, that's me as a man imparting knowledge with him to hopefully shape him as a better man than he could have been without those books. Or whatever. I don't know how I'm internalizing this. MGTOW, men go their own way in the Incel movement. It's very interesting how it's important to discuss these things. And I think, by and large, the females need this. Because the only person I've seen that kind of discusses these sort of things is Abigail Shapiro. And I do not think the Shapiro family should be, in any meaningful way, involved in any of this. Just because, Zionist agenda, this and that, and da-da-da-da-da. Conspiracy theory stuff. But yeah, just the same way that men have their own, like, go their own way movement, I think women need their own movement for them to go their own way. That doesn't really require them to follow or tout the lines of modern feminists. Just because, I don't know. I've seen a greater population of older feminists that are between my age and the senior, like 3 years or 4 years above me, because I still have some of those people added on my Facebook, and I've seen where all of this has led, and it kind of makes me worry a lot. It makes me worry to think that where are we going to be in 7 years from now, because they're all single mothers. I don't know what kind of households they lead, but I really worry about the children. Like, because the way I see it is, I think about my cousins, I think about me, I think about my sisters, and I think about how we turned out, and then I think about how we were as kids when we experienced all this, and it's kind of why I have very serious convictions about being very seriously committed towards creating a healthy family unit, and understanding what allows for these conditions to really manifest a healthy home. And I think the only people discussing these topics are men go their own way movements. Like the men manosphere shit and all this other shit. They're the only ones that are having meaningful discussion in the creation of what it means to have a real family. Beyond that, I don't think anybody else does. And it's rather sad. Yeah, I think I'll leave that there. Because I don't know what else to say, and I want to re-listen to these things. And it is, what time is it anyways? It's 6:13. Yeah. I'm probably going to draw all day. If I find any political video or any conspiratorial video, I will probably make an addition. If not, there probably won't be a third video for today. It's Friday. My shoulder doesn't really hurt anymore. I feel like I could work out. And I also want to look for any meaningful information that could help me with my speech problem, with being able to help with me being able to recall what topics I was talking about, and make sure that I don't lose myself in any of this. So my name was Ramirez. Thanks for watching, and hopefully we can move towards a better future, a better tomorrow, and regardless of whatever or however that manifests itself. I probably did a piss poor job explaining the MGTOW movement and the Red Pill movement and the man stuff, but Very nuanced stuff. And I think all of this is just going to progress forward towards a much bigger discussion that will, and whatever that bigger discussion is and how these topics develop will be very detrimental to humanity's future. And that's the way I see it, or at least culture's future. Thanks for watching. My name is Ramirez. And as usual, I hope everyone has a great day.